Network 99.5 FM. Today is Open Line Friday. Of course, you know, on Fridays, anything we can talk about. Nothing personal, of course. You want to talk about the Prime Minister? What he said now, not anything that is personal, but relating to the work that he's doing as Prime Minister of the country, relating to the work as a representative in his particular constituency. We can talk about that. And that applies to any minister in the government. But I don't want you to get personal with our leaders now because that is not a good thing to do. And we want verifiable information, what he said. That's why we try hard. And I do apologize for what happened yesterday. Bahamians, I do apologize again because we counted the source as being credible. We're not saying they're uncredible, even though we got the wrong information. But we had to correct it because the correct information came in saying it was not so. So we're going to be extremely careful now when it comes to politics in making announcements from any political organization, because that's newsworthy. We're going to have to double check to see whether it is so or not, even though the source may be credible. Because I think that might have been the first time it happened with me on this show, as far as I can remember. But we want to give information that is accurate and precise. We understand everything that was sent out was not correct. And immediately we apologize to you for that. We want to give you information that is credible. Now, if persons in a particular political party have their differences, there's nothing to do with us. They have to settle that as best as they can. And the dissemination of information from political organizations is their responsibility. And if they do not have their business in order, you can't blame us for that. But we're going to be extremely careful, very extremely careful in making any political announcement as far as this show is concerned. I can't speak for them others. I can speak for this one that I'm responsible for. We're going to be extremely cautious when we make any political announcement in the future, because we don't want people to be misled or deceived or thinking we're taking one side as opposed to the other, because some people already thought that. But we didn't hear anything from the other political organizations out there. We can't announce anything because they never sent any information in. So how you expect to hear from them? Now, if they stay quiet in the corner, well, then that's their thing. But if they have something to say, they can call into the radio station and we can get the information, or they can send information by WhatsApp or whatever, or send an email. And there are different ways of communicating. You know, what I don't understand is this, Bahamians. We have all this communication. More than any other time on the planet. And yet there's tremendous misinformation going out there. Misleading information. So we have the Constitution. You see how much misleading information is going out on that? When things are being done in this country by the authorities, we get bits and pieces. I think we're going to play that same tape. I think we may have played it yesterday, but I'm going to ask my producer to play it again. What the Prime Minister said. He's concerned about this project, and he wants everybody to get on board with it. But people have questions, they will ask questions. And I hope that the Prime Minister is not saying we shouldn't ask questions. He may get a little agitated over that. Well, then he have to deal with that. But you can't expect people to jump on board and they ain't sure whether there's one big hole right on that floor of the ship. You fall right through it in the bottom of the ocean and nobody could find you. Is that what you want, Bahamians? You have to know what you're getting involved in. And I'm going to stress very strongly, this is going to be a very serious election coming up. You're going to have to make some strong decisions, Bahamians, because some things have been happening to us because we've been careless, we've been lackadaisical, we've been slow to change, Bahamians. We got the Holy Bible right there in the Constitution. They ain't changing. So what's wrong with us? Why is it that we don't have God in our knowledge? Of course, this is open line Friday night. Want to bring up about the incidents with the rapes that have been occurring. We've been having too many rapes in this country, Bahamians. What's wrong with the Bahamian male? Oh, no, let me take that back. The males. Now, I know whether they're all Bahamian, because Bahamian males ain't supposed to behave like that. You think Bahamian males just go around raping children and raping people? Oh, they ain't sure because they ain't tell us what nationality these people are. So the assumption is, like Ellison Greenslade made assumption when he was commissioned to believe, that they were Bahamians. Not everybody is Bahamians. They may be in the land. They may be in the country. That doesn't make them Bahamian. They may have been born here too. Some say I was born here, I was Bahamian. That ain't true. If they're Bahamian like me, they wouldn't be raping. If they're Bahamian like me, Professor Sidney MacArthur, Walter Thompson, you won't have anyone thieving and stealing and robbing and killing people. You know, Bahamians are not supposed to commit murder, you know. So you got to look at the track record, the credibility of these persons who are doing this criminal activity in our country, because it makes it look bad. You got one Thompson fellow out there charged with murder. Is he related to Professor Sidney MacArthur, Walter Thompson? I don't know. So you see, this is why I use my whole name, Professor Sidney MacArthur, Walter Thompson. So if they have anything on him, tell him go check that. But the point is that person is a Thompson. I believe the current director of labor is a Thompson too, if I'm not mistaken. So you got Thompsons out there. And all of them are not of good character. So it brings an ill repute on the Thompson name. That's the problem. Now, can we avoid that? I think that we can if we can get people to behave themselves and to follow Christian values and Christian principles. Well, then fine, we could get somewhere. We got all these churches around here. Someone was counting the other day how many churches are on Robinson Lake Road, I think it is, how many bar rooms there are, how many web shops are there. They're just going down the line and just counting. Excuse me. But there are people in our midst who are not of good character. So when you hear the last name, then you hear, well, that puts a blight on persons who carry that last name, the Thompson name. And it has happened with other families as well. But that doesn't mean everyone in that family is of a negative connotation. Even though, let me make this clear now, all of us have carnal nature. God says the carnal mind is enmity against God. That's in every person, every single human being. Doesn't matter what color you are, doesn't matter what name you have, doesn't matter what race you belong to. Those things are not important to God. You got carnal nature. And it's enmity, hatred against God. See how the makeup of human beings? Then they talk about what good inside of you. Give me a break, man. What good? Out of the heart proceed what? Evil thoughts. That's what the man tells me. You look at that little baby right in the crib. From the day it was born, start speaking lies. That's what in my Bible. My Bible tells me. You say, no, that can't be that. Not that little baby like that. That's a cute little baby. You stay right there. I remember the day that my baby brother was born. The first man to hold him was me. My mother planked him right in my arms, said, "That's your baby, brother." And we've been tight from that moment right on up to now. And even though he's married, he have a grandson, I think it is. Ain't nothing changed. He has always been the same way, straight through all his life. And when he comes by, he always asks for his big brother. So even though he's not as young as I am, but the point is, we have that strong relationship as brothers. Now, some other people, well, they kind of go off and do some other things. But Bahamians, it is most important that we avoid all of these troubles and challenges. Well, there'll be challenges, but we have to learn how to conduct ourselves according to Christian values and the rule of law. Now, today's open line. We're going to talk about anything you want to talk about. You mind me, I'll talk till Christ come back. And there are any number of things we have. My guest is here. I'm going to bring him in very soon. That are occurring in the country at the national level, at the constituency level, at the community level, at the family level, at the personal level. And then personal things, that's very important with that one now. Let's leave them alone. And then I have to tell you, over the last 52 years, people tell me all kind of things that are personal. But I can't talk it because they ain't going to know. See, I tell Professor and he talked that. So what I have to do, you know what I have to do? I got to go home, ask God to forgive me, forget it, pray about it, forget it. And when I wake up the next day, I ain't remember nothing. Just like it never happened. So you can't ask me nothing because I don't remember nothing. And that's the way it's been for 52 years plus. But the thing is, Bahamians, people do have their problems. They have their challenges. They have their difficulties. And they have to find someone who they can confide in. I have to talk to some people too, but the circle is very small. And I think I got to tighten it up a little bit more because the enemy is busy. So you got to talk to Jesus. He say, "Come unto me, all you that labor." He say, "Go to them other people, He say, come to me, Jesus Christ. Take my yoke upon you and learn of me, for my yoke is easy, praise the Lord, and my burden, you got plenty burdens on your back, Bahamians. And Christ came to remove those burdens, those sorrows that we are going through, heavy laden. That's what the man tells me. And I, Jesus, will give you rest. Not them other fellas. They can't give you no rest. I know sometimes family members will comfort you if something happens. That's fine. I'm not knocking that at all. But to get real rest, you have to have a relationship with your Savior, Jesus Christ. And I think a lot of people are mixed up, confused, they're worried, they're upset. They had their trust and confidence in people who they trusted, they relied upon, they depended upon, and then the people let them down. Those of us who know better ought to do better. So when you give your word, you keep it. Stop telling lies. The man say, "Lie not one to another." That's what the man tells me. So what you doing telling lies? This election season, plenty lies will be told. Say, God told them this, God told them that. God ain't tell them nothing. Their figmentation in their mind, the foolishness of their heart, tell them something. So they come and bring the garbage to you. Look what happened in the last election. All those people who told lies, did they come back and apologize and say, "We apologize for the lies we have told you"? Think they did that? Not a living one of them came back and apologized to the family electorate. That's why you don't fool around with them kind of people. And some of them coming back again, They think you forgot the lies they told you the last time. But I remember, Bahamians. You see why I tell you stick with your Constitution and the Holy Bible? analyze them according to the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Bahamas and the Holy Bible, and you're straight. You'll know whether you should choose that one or not. Bahamas is not difficult, you know. It requires some digging. You ask appropriate questions and see the facial expression, see the body language. You're going to have to ask some uncomfortable things, you know. Because that means we got a bunch of fraudsters, fakers, liars, cheaters that just want power. So they come with a smooth face and dress up nice and everything like that. Wolf in sheep's clothing. That's what it is, Bahamians. Even in the church, they tell lies, you know. People in the church dress up, but they are wolves in sheep's clothing. Even the first century church had that. But you would think 21 years later, 2100 years later, come on, man. Or 2000 years later, because this is the 21st century. We should stop that foolishness. Don't you think we had enough history where people have been lying and cheating and lying and cheating, and still today we still got that kind of problem today? And then some people come around and tell you, give them a chance. Some people say, give them a chance, and they will do this, they will do that. Some people had it for 70 years. Some people had it for 50-something years, Bahamians. Now go and check the track record and see what the record is. See, they can't tell me nothing, you know. I might hear them out. But the leopard doesn't change its spots. And then they didn't repent of anything that they told you that was false, because they keep saying we did nothing wrong. Be careful of those people who tell you they didn't do nothing wrong. Right there, you know something wrong with them. We never did anything wrong. These are carnal-minded, stubborn, rebellious personalities telling you lies about they did nothing wrong. And the wrong bigger than Christ Church Cathedral. But they're still telling you, trying to convince you they did nothing wrong. Any crap like that? That means we got to start thinking, man. Well, I can do my best to get you to do the right thing. You must choose the right person in your constituency to send to the House of Assembly. You must choose the right person so we can have a national government that can solve national problems. Bahamians, I'm praying for this. We need a national government that can solve national problems. Not people who are trying now. Trying ain't good enough. We got too many problems. See, they got another problem with the Royal Bahamas Police Force. And someone was asking for some commission to be set up, independent commission, to investigate the police. I think the commissioner has put one on leave. Now, I don't know if they just pay them full salary when they go on leave, as paid vacation. There are some things that are happening in the Royal Bahamas Police Force that makes the police force look bad. I'm not saying every one of them in there, but I won't use the word what people like to use. But let me say, not every police officer is considered to be doing things that are not constitutionally sound. Let me use that expression. I don't want to use that other word. The thing is, Bahamians, we have some good law-abiding officers, and they mean well. But they keep telling me it's only a few corrupt ones among the police force. Well, how come we can't get at a corrupt one? You mean to tell me we can't find who they are? Why is it so difficult to find out who is who? We should know by now. All these investigations, all of these activities, and the police force is saddled. Every time you look around, they got to investigate something. And we only have a limited number of police officers. So some things, when you look at it, Bahamians, are going to get left out in the cold. I'm thinking about an incident right now where 6 people just disappeared into thin air. You get that, Bahamians? This happened several years ago. And I heard commissioner after commissioner say they're going to give us the results, make them public. Ain't nothing public yet. They're standing right there. And then when I blink my eye, they just disappear. Where they went. But the man say he can investigate. The next man say he can investigate. Well, yeah, nothing. All them going out of office. But we ain't know nothing Bahamians. And some other things have occurred since then. We ain't know. We were told they can investigate. How long does it take to investigate? Now, some things they may have come into a dead end, but then tell us you come to a dead end. But they ain't tell me nothing. I don't know if they told you, but they certainly ain't tell me. And if they had told me, I would have tell you. But the point is, they say they're investigating. Maybe they're still investigating. But the 6 fellas standing right there. And then when I blinked my eye, they was gone. I just disappear. I said, where did they go? I asked the fellas, say, where they going? Just like a wisp, mist on the glass and just disappear. Some strange things are happening in this country, Bahamians. And then we get the blame because then the people on the outside look at it and say, see them people in the Bahamas, they're Bahamians, they just behave a certain way. And then people form in their mind certain things about the Bahamian people. But I can tell you one thing that is positive with us. One major thing that is possible, which has been so from 1729, September of 1729, which we do not use. I know how we get like this, you know. From 1729, when the House of Assembly was set up, September of 1729. September is my birth month. Maybe that's why I remember it so well. From September of 1729, right on up to now, in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, we were a colony back then, until July the 10th, 1973, when we became a nation. And then some people around here still talking foolishness. Is the Bahamas a nation? Yes, it is. Just like the United States is one nation, we're one nation. They got one seat in the UN, we got one seat. We got an ambassador in Washington, their capital place, but over here they ain't got none. I know what happened. They need to tell us why they don't have an ambassador here. It's been so for several years. A couple of presidents been by and they ain't got no ambassador here. They got what they call a charge d'affaires, whatever that's supposed to mean. But Bahamians, I keep saying, look at what they do. This is something that's going on continually, and yet they say we're supposed to have good relations. They are friends, whatever that's supposed to mean. When people have their own personal interests, is that being friendly toward you? When they only use you for their own selfish purposes, is that what friendliness is all about? What kind of relationship do we have? And then, of course, you got them people from China, they saying something else. They're a communist nation. They're not a democratic nation. You got hundreds of millions of people in China who are under dictatorship. They don't have labor laws like what we have here, you know. See, even though we got labor laws, the fella still wants to make you a slave. What kind of crap is that? When my Constitution says no man, woman, or child shall ever be slave or bondsman to anyone, that's what the man tells me. So how come some people want to make us slaves? They got some problems in Norman's Key. Mr. Thompson, who is the director of labor, say he's going to check it out. Well, I wish him well. And we got to be very careful because we have been selling islands to persons who want to set up their little kingdoms in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. We don't have proper oversight as to what's going on. Things happen. Abuses happen to people who are working on these keys, and we don't know until the damage has been done. Do we have proper supervision? Are we able to monitor carefully what's going on in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, outside of New Providence, outside of Grand Bahama? Now, we got some problems right here in New Providence now. And a fella come right through South Beach in one rickety boat and come straight on the shore. You any crap like that? Or some other part of the island in New Providence. Now, how that happen? We got Defense Force office. We got Defense Force base right there. And they're supposed to be in charge of the borders of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. Now, I hear nothing about no repatriation of strangers, you know. But what I do know is this. I see all kinds of strangers, foreigners, aliens, outsiders, walking up and down on the island of New Providence, standing in front of people's house and asking questions, which is none of their, anyhow, their business. I was going to use a different word, but anyway, one was exercise, caution, and restraint. But babies, this is reality. And the question I ask you is just one basic, fundamental question. What are you going to do about it? Because there's something you can do, Bahamians. Something that you could do to put a stop to this crap, this foolishness, this nonsense that's going on. Bahamians, we got to wake up. We have to save the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. I working to save it. And I believe by the grace of God we will. But we have to have God in our knowledge. We got to listen to what the man say. We got the Holy Bible and we got the Constitution. The two of them have to go together, Bahamians. Then we would have a country that we can be proud of. This is Professor Sidney Walter Thompson on the Global Radio Network 99.5 FM. The lines are open. This is Open Line Friday. We're talking about anything. Y'all want to talk about President Donald Trump? We talk about him too. Y'all want to talk about Prime Minister of the country, Philip Brave Davis? We talk about him too. I got some tapes on him. You want to talk about Wayne Monroe? Let's talk about Wayne Monroe. The Honorable Wayne Monroe. Let me give him his props. The Minister of Health. You've been saying some things. This is Professor Sidney Walter Thompson on the Global Radio Network. You want to talk about crime? Let's talk about crime then. You can deal with that too. This is Professor Sidney Walter Thompson on the Global Radio Network. The lines open 326-0271, 326-0272, 813-0271. I got my two guests right here. I introduce them when we get back. This is Professor Sidney Walter Thompson on the Global Radio Network 99.5 FM. We'll be back after the break. Bahamas, this is a great day to be in the Commonwealth of Bahamas. In spite of the problems that we have, I staying right here in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. I'm not going to them other people's place. God gave the Commonwealth of the Bahamas to the Bahamian people. This is our space on planet Earth. None of them other people got their space. But they break up their space and then want to break up somebody else's own. Any crap like that? That's not fair. That's not just. That's not godly. We're supposed to go by godly principles. So we have a right to protect. The Constitution tells us we have a right. Bahamians, listen to this, man. Article 24.1. I keep going to Article 24.1 because that's a key article. The last phrase in that article. Don't worry about them other things, what they write in there. I'm not saying you must ignore them now. But I want to zero in on that last phrase on 24.1. And I do it consistently because that's a key phrase. You might overlook that. For the protection of your interests, because many of you are not even protecting your interests. We got to do something, Bahamians, to protect what is ours. The Lord gave it to you and you ain't want to protect it. The Bahamas belongs to us. Let me stop right there. I got my two guests in here, Brother Hyler, Brother Cartwright. Welcome to Express Yourself on the Global Radio Network 99.5 FM. This is Open Line Friday. Gentlemen, welcome.
Good day, Professor. Good day, Mr. Cartwright. Good day, producer J-Wiz. Good day, Bahamas. You know, my voice, I sound a little tired, Professor, because the Bahamian people can't catch a break.
No, they can't.
But I really don't want to keep saying the same thing over and over and over again. We have to take action, and we have to get organized.
Yes.
Against what is happening. Bahamians getting pushed off of their land. We're not being paid by the public service. We are hearing that there's a record amount of money coming in. So it just doesn't add up. If we have a record amount of money coming in, why is it a record amount of secrecy? It's a record and disturbing amount of you don't know what's happening. Yeah. And all I'll say for now, until Mr. Cartwright comes in and others, all I'll say for now, 2 days ago, I believe it was, we hearing related to Grand Bahama and the Grand Lacayan deal, the Prime Minister saying, wait and see.
What is there to wait and see?
Why don't you let's all wait together. Let's hold hands, wait together. And
you can't work together with a man who is holding back information that we ought to have. I want him to put it out just like they put the Electricity Act of 2024. I want him to put the entire thing out because, see, I got that. I could read that and study that and discuss that on air. Yeah. I need to have the information. I don't need bits and pieces. You say that's what it say. No, sir. Let me see it myself. Let me study it myself. Let me look at it, analyze it I got to go by the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Bahamas to see if it make any sense.
Yeah.
But you can't tell people that let's work together, but you got to give us the evidence, Mr. Prime Minister.
Well, other than that, Professor, and I'll leave it there for now until after, like I said,
Cartwright.
But I bought this article. Mr. Cartwright, we all have it before us. This land reform bill that the Prime Minister put forward. It made the front page, but they have it in small print.
Okay.
They have it in small print. So I'll come back to it.
This in today's paper, right?
Actually, it was Thursday's paper. The headline say, imports are up. That's the big headline across the top of the newspaper. In the Guardian of Thursday, May the 22nd. Imports are up 18%. Big and bold writing, down on the bottom of the same page.
Yes.
In small writing, the land reform bills mark generation shift for Bahamians. So all I can say for now, talk is cheap, money buy land. That's what I want to talk about today. Okay. Mr. Cartwright?
Brother Cartwright.
Yes, good afternoon, Professor. Good afternoon, Brother Hyler, producer on the Global 99.5 FM. Brother Hyler, the biggest thing for me, I listened to the Prime Minister talking about Grand Bahama, but The biggest thing for me is that with most Bahamians, like myself, whose forefathers had land before there was even a Bahamian government,
Yes.
Okay.
and now this talk by the Prime Minister that they are coming to bring changes in this new land adjudication bill and registered land bill was tabled in the House, which I found out 2 weeks ago. But I didn't hear any media
Okay, then.
talk about it.
Okay.
And so that's why when I heard this, I was like, hold on, but I was up on the pass by Parliament, but because of the funerals, I said there wasn't no one there to get me the information I needed, but I'll get it next week. But here's the thing: what I'm trying to figure out what the Prime Minister is trying to do, because if people had land and ownership of land before there was a form of a government,
Yes.
which in those days people bought land from the crown.
Yes.
And now you're saying you're making a generational shift. How are you making a shift for? Bahamians or foreigners? If you want to impress Bahamians, repeal the act that Mr. Ingram put in place that allowed land, keys, everything else to be sold to foreigners. That is why Bahamians can't have a chance to basically survive in this country in buying land.
And that's the Immovable Property Act.
Yes. And so we need to move in that direction. But for now, we'll wait. I think we got a caller on the line.
No,
so
I will get to the caller. I was just waiting for you to make a point.
I was going to wait till that. Then let me get back.
No, but no, that's fine. That's fine. I was going to get to the caller. Excuse me. Caller, you're live on air. Go ahead, please.
Professor, good afternoon to you and your guests.
Yes,
Hey,
sir.
good
Go
day.
ahead.
Good day.
Is it safe to say that one of the well, let me rephrase by saying I don't think this administration has grandmama best interest at heart.
Okay.
And the reason why I say that is it safe to say one of the biggest hindrances in grandmama is airlift. Is it safe to say that? Not hotel rooms.
Yes.
It's airlift. Getting a plane to the airport.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
We have a functional airport, and we have one of the best runway in the Bahamas. So that being said, why is the fees in Grand Bahama still higher than all the family islands?
Okay.
Good question.
Exactly who owns the Grand Bahama Airport again?
Well, that's a funny thing because here's the thing. I believe at the last administration when they bought the hotel, I think that
Dr. Menace acquired the airport
Yes.
from the
as well.
Hutchison
right.
Wampoa for
And
$1
so that means that the airport itself now belongs to the Bahamian
to the
public.
Bahamas government.
Yeah.
And so
And the Bahamas government
government-
could reduce those fees.
well, the fees should have been at the same level as every other place in the islands, not more.
Yeah.
And,
So again,
if I'm going to say this, and if the government is allowing the Port Authority to collect their fees, then the government needs to reclaim those fees from the port because it's no longer the property of the ports or anyone who operates the port.
say what you want to say about Dr. Menace. I'm no fan of his. Let me say that outright. But you have to give Dr. Menace some credit. Number one, he acquired a hotel from the Chinese. Again, some might say $65 million is a lot. I believe $65 million is a good deal to take anything back from the Chinese.
Okay.
He acquired the airport, and I wish he had acquired a harbor. So say what you want to say about Dr. Menace, but this is the first time in the history of the Bahamas government that the Bahamas government ever owned an airport in Grand Bahama. We have never owned an airport in Grand Bahama.
Okay. Well, caller, thank you for your contribution.
Strong point.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
And he's correct, Professor. For all the years of the operation of the city of Freeport or the island of Grand Bahama, the main airport in Grand Bahama was in Freeport. The whole airport they had at West End, that basically was closed down. So every traffic
for the Jackdaw on that side.
And that was closed down. So when you look at it, even up to independence, after independence, we've never owned the airport in Freeport. Everything went through the port.
The port, yeah.
And so the port collected fees, whatever the port charged, you paid it or you don't enter, you can't fly in the Freeport. And that's one of the things, because now he said that with the deal, the purchase of the hotel. Now,
and there's some other additional property that's
but now here's the funny thing with those other properties. Now, when Dr. Menace purchased that hotel from the Chinese, he could have lowered the price. And the reason why I said he could have lowered the price is because all the other surrounding properties in that area were knocked down.
Okay.
because of they were uninsurable. So if you got someone wanted to sell you an uninsurable property, you could have basically negotiated for a lower price and also got a better deal with the airport, because all of that property, what now they're talking about with the hotel, yes, it is a good thing, but we could have been more stronger in our negotiations and get it at a better price, because if a property is uninsurable, then you shouldn't cost you 65 million.
Okay.
You should be able to get it at almost like a rental free, because ain't nothing they could have done. The person who owned the property before had already collected insurance, and the only reason they got rid of it is because they could not get it insured again.
Insured again, yes.
So
Okay.
the only way they would have that property insured is now, whenever who buys whatever the Prime Minister basically revealed to us, but this our Lukaya, that building is going to get knocked down. No ifs, ands, and buts. And
Okay.
when you knock that down, because you cannot have the same old building, who's going to insure it? Which insurance company will insure that property after they already know the history of it from the previous owner? So
Okay.
means you have to knock down that property and clear up all the other surrounding property and rebuild.
Wow.
But now when you're talking about rebuild, that is not going to happen in no 1 year. That size, not a hotel.
Since you mentioned the
Yeah.
1 year, remember last week we had discussed that. This company, Concord Wilshire, they don't do nothing in 1 year.
No.
And for those that haven't heard, we have expressed concern on this show that for a company operating in Florida, I see where they bought and sold a golf course.
Yes.
I saw where they bought and sold a hotel in Hallandale Beach,
Yes.
but I don't see where they have developed
No.
or let alone spent hundreds of millions of dollars. We have seen no ribbon cutting from this company.
Okay.
Now you're saying wait and see. The Prime Minister is saying wait and see. Are you saying wait and see this company do the same thing they've done in other jurisdictions?
Well, here's the thing, Brother Hyler. Their track record, I always tell people that their track record is of being a speculator, whereby that you buy a piece of land for little or nothing.
Okay.
Then you flip it over to the person who really wants to buy it.
Right.
So you just going along and buy a piece of property for John Doe, and then John Doe gives you the money, pays you your commission, and said, okay, this is what they asked for it. Okay, put this out there. You say you're going to invest so much money, and then we'll come behind, take it off of you.
Right.
And we would be the ones doing it, because if you listen carefully, they were talking about tying in hotels tied to the cruise.
I noticed
Yes,
that, yes.
yes.
So I'm like, these fellas are real estate fellas. What
Right.
they doing with cruise?
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So-
I was suspicious about that.
And then you talk about most of the property on the front, waterfront, it's also being looked at by basically saying it's going to be for cruise residents.
As,
And so I
as a
said-
destination.
Yeah.
Right.
and so I said, hold on now, something ain't right here. And so if the Prime Minister really wants to be, and here's the biggest thing, if you talking about rebuilding and putting hotels, right? The only thing I see you didn't talk about is the airport. How are you going to get people to the island?
Right. I hope they ain't have that
Now-
airport in that deal. You talk
Now, if you saying to me, are you saying that the cruise going to be providing this hotels and stuff, the guests, because you ain't saying nothing yet about nothing started, no groundbreaking, nothing
Nothing.
at that airport, because that airport is basically dilapidated. People might use it,
Right.
but that is not an international airport.
Professor, you need to see that.
That is
I've
not-
traveled,
yeah.
I've seen it,
Yes.
and nobody in Grand Bahama is serious about development because the airport is an anchor property,
Yeah.
basically.
Okay.
Without an airport,
so it's,
you can't do
man,
nothing.
They doing Grand Bahama terrible.
And so for him to be talking about wait and see, and then I don't like when I hear parliamentarians start talking about deal.
Yeah.
Deal is what I call for people who sit around a card table and stuff,
Right.
And cut
or,
deals.
or people who sit down in the backyard. you
So
know,
they're cutting the deal.
deal. But
Yeah.
when I hear from my parliamentarians talking about we cutting
Yeah, yeah.
deal projects.
Yeah.
No,
And
you
projects.
you the Prime Minister, you represent us as a whole.
That's right.
The agreement, the heads of agreement, with this company, you said this is what they plan to invest,
Mhm.
X, Y, Z, and then you must give the information to all others in the parliament.
Yeah.
You just can't keep it to yourself. So we have an opposition where we now have two parties as an opposition.
Mhm.
Give them the information, let them look at it,
Right.
then let them critique it, and then they come back to you, and then you all come together, and then you all work on this together, the property. But
Mhm.
not you telling them, oh, it's for points. You ain't got no time.
Mhm.
Gentlemen, I'm going to stop you right there. Mr. Producer, please.
But for years, nothing has happened. Look, I don't need to. We have a project, we have an arrangement, a deal. Wait and see. I don't need to get into these details. Instead of us coming together to ensure that this project is successful, why just stand back or criticize? But for years, nothing has happened. Something is about to happen. Let us work together to see that it happen instead of asking these questions. That really is only about trying to get political fodder out there to talk about. I'm not about that now. I'm about trying to ensure that this project succeeds and that the Bahamian people, and particularly Grand Bahamian people, benefit from it.
But the Prime Minister made an error when he spoke just now.
I don't need to get into these details, or what part?
The whole thing
The
from
whole
start to finish.
Yes.
Okay.
That's why you got to listen carefully to what the man say.
That is
How
not-
can you ask me to work along with
With
you
you.
and I the hell don't know
You
You
what
don't
you're
know what I'm
talking
working
about?
with. We don't know what we're working with.
But
You
Professor-
telling me to wait and see.
But Professor Harrison made the thing. This is not his personal.
No, it isn't.
It is
This is the
It's the
business of the
people's-
Bahamian
yeah.
people.
Yeah.
And you telling the
Come
Parliament
on, give me
of
a
the
break,
Bahamas
Mhm.
that, especially you saying to the opposition, you don't need to tell them anything. You trying to put something together and you telling them, work with you,
Work with him.
but you wouldn't show them the details of what it is you want them to work with, but you want them to just sit down.
But he's telling us what
Yeah.
he is saying.
he-
See, we do not have the
Mhm.
actual documentation.
Documentation.
So you got to remember that now.
Yes.
You are getting what the man is saying,
Saying.
supposed to be there.
Yeah.
We don't know that.
I mean,
You
but
heard
take his
his,
word.
you heard what his
Response.
Minister of Tourism
Yes.
had said? What he had been saying in the past? Can we believe what he said?
Their track
He
record.
seemed to be out. Well, that's what I keep saying, the
Their
track record.
Yeah.
Now the Prime Minister is saying something totally different from what he was saying.
Mhm.
So how could you just sit back and take their word and not see the actual documentation? This is what it is. Let me analyze it according to the Constitution, and then I can have a better understanding of what's
You
going
know,
on.
But you're saying that, Professor, and if you're correct. We heard the Minister of Tourism and Investment
Yes.
may start to talk about this setting. And I'm now trying to figure out, we know the Prime Minister is the Minister of Finance. But apparently from listening to the Minister of Tourism, it appears to me, I can be wrong, that it was the Minister of Investment put this together and the Prime Minister came and took front center to say, well, I'm the boss and let me do this talking. Because if you're listening to him trying to explain it, it is totally off from the way the Minister of Tourism and Investment explained it. So that's why we're having this sound like a conflict of wording.
Well, there
Because-
is a conflict.
And so you hear him, and it's even in his mannerism, and you could see the frustration because people will ask questions and you don't have the answers.
Yes.
So if you don't have the answers, remember I said earlier, we cannot have people speaking to matters when it comes to the Bahamians people manners
Yes.
and properties and business. If that person was not the person in the room that put that project or that agreement together.
Okay.
It makes no sense because the other day we had Mr. Latrey Raman speaking, and I was like, whoa, bro, you were not there. You can't tell us what this deal is, this agreement is about. The Prime Minister saying, and then he's talking, and he said, wait and see.
Yes.
So apparently you were not even there when this agreement was put together. So why not give the person who put the agreement together, let them speak, so we can then question them. since you don't want to answer questions, let those who were there in the room negotiating speak to the matter, and then, or you all gather around, put your ideas together and said, okay, this is what we're going to do, how we're going to express to the public.
Yeah.
But apparently, it doesn't seem that the prime minister has any knowledge of it because he's telling us, wait and see.
Yeah.
So, Cartwright, let me make sure the Prime Minister and our Deputy Prime Minister, I know it's not constitutional, but
No, but don't even mention
yeah,
that.
that's
He's
not. Let me
Minister
skip
of
over that.
Tourism.
I know
said
that's
the
a
minister,
trigger.
right? I said that's the
Professor,
minister,
I know
the
that's a
minister.
trigger for you.
The minister.
The Minister for Tourism and Aviation. Okay, both of them together. Let me go on record as saying the only hotel close to this size that Concord Wilshire has dealt with, or we have a record of how they operate, is a Sheridan Hotel
Yeah.
in Phoenix, Arizona.
Okay.
And they went into an arrangement with Marriott, right?
Okay.
Came around the table, shuffled some figures around, and turned around and sold the property to BlackRock. That's the
Okay.
same investment firm that was in line to buy the Panama Canal.
Yeah,
I think
heard
they
about
have
that.
trillions of dollars of money. So, I mean, it's a very powerful
They're an investment
organization.
company.
They're an investment company. So
Right.
what I'm saying is, like, we're on record now. I'm wrapping up with this. It would not be surprising, even if Concord Wilshire were to bring a name that we know
Yes.
to say, okay, we had the table talking with Marriott or we're talking with another major company.
Okay.
They still have a reputation of turning around and selling it out,
Buy and flip.
They hotel flippers.
Yeah.
Well,
Land
okay.
flippers.
I believe, Mr. Bruce, we have a call on the line. Call you
Yes.
live on air. Go ahead, please.
Good afternoon, Professor.
Yes,
Mr.
ma'am.
Cartwright and Mr. Hyla.
Yes, ma'am.
Hey, good day.
Professor, I have a question. I don't know if you were able to see that video that I had spoken to you about earlier in the week,
Oh, yeah.
where on that flag foolishness that those Haitian people had, where they were faulting the police car,
Yes, ma'am.
and that
No,
I
no,
don't know if you or Mr.
No.
Hyla or
No,
Mr.
I-
Cartwright
I-
saw
no,
that video.
I apologize. I had not been able to see.
I
see it,
also
ma'am.
did not see that. I didn't
Yes,
see it.
ma'am.
No, ma'am.
Okay. And
I-
and then here was the other video with these Haitian people who took over the woman's house while she was away in Canada
I heard about that
visiting
one.
her son.
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Yeah, that's very serious.
You know,
Yeah.
yeah, when things like this are happening and we don't have people in our country to come to this lady's rescue.
Yes, ma'am.
Because I'll say this, I know I saw Mr. Bean there, but for something so serious,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, not a pastor, not anybody else stood up with that woman
Yes,
to
ma'am.
try to get her problem resolved.
Yes, ma'am.
But
Okay.
mom, here's the thing that
Yeah.
I'm looking at. This new bill that
Mhm.
Prime Minister is talking about, which he said they had was tabled in the House 2 weeks ago. This lady probably comes underneath the same, will be coming underneath the same new bill, this land adjudicated bill and registered land bill. I would like to know how would that affect someone like her who have owned that property, and how would it protect her? Because with all of these new land reform bills you're talking about a generational shift. You now basically opening up the country for whereby non-citizens
Mm-hmm.
will be, because I keep asking them, why don't you all repeal the Removable Property Act?
Mhm.
Yes, ma'am.
Prevent foreigners from buying land.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Apparently, everyone is like, no, we'll get to that, but they're now looking towards making new land laws that basically ain't touching the main elephant in the room, which
Yes.
is selling of land.
Selling of
Mhm.
land. Yes.
You now,
So, Miss,
Yeah, make your point
so
quickly, ma'am.
just so what do you think then, seeing that this woman have her property papers, that land is her land, and now that these folks come, especially the gentleman who built on it, what happens to that house?
well,
But that's interesting. And,
Because
and
what
thank
I'm
you for
saying-
your
yes.
contribution, ma'am.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
but what I'm saying to her, Professor,
Yeah, go ahead.
with these
She's
new
listening.
bills coming up with the land reform bills, it is very interesting that they are talking about this was tabled 2 weeks ago, but you never heard any MP talk about it in his constituency to inform his
The people,
constituency
exactly.
No one
how
has been
this
informed.
bill is going to
Exactly.
Yes.
affect you.
Exactly.
So you would come now this week coming and start talking about bringing changes. And they said they said, every land parcel will receive a unique identification number.
I heard that, yeah.
And then when you start talking about
Cartwright, I think we need to read this article, if you don't mind. I think
that's
we
why I
need to
said,
read this. Oh, let me pause you right there. I don't interject over nobody.
No,
Professor,
this
if you
is-
don't mind,
No, go
this is
ahead.
very
could we
deep.
read this article?
Yeah, go ahead.
It's a Guardian article quoting the Prime Minister. We're about to go to a break, so perhaps we could read it after the break,
Yes,
Professor.
read it after the break, because this
Let's do it after the
yes,
break.
'cause
This is the hottest thing
yeah,
and most important thing to the Bahamian future,
Yeah.
our land.
because without land you are nothing.
Yeah.
That is true. Remember now, we had a similar problem before, where you
Yeah.
and I, Brother Hyler, discussed that.
Yes.
And it's raising its ugly head again with another particular personality. Okay? This is Professor.
Quickly before we go, the last caller, when she stated what's going to happen with that lady, they built, you should see the house on it. The house is look like it belonged in Lightfoot Key that
Wow.
they built on the woman house. The law states that house is hers. If you build on somebody's land and they own the land,
Yes.
that house is theirs.
Yeah.
So follow that case to see whether or not the law will prevail.
Yeah, that's an interesting
That's
point.
her house.
That's an interesting point. Yeah. Boy, so many things are happening in this country. This is Professor Sidney McGarter, Walter Thompson on the Global Radio Network. The lines are open 326-0271, 326-0272. We talking about land today. I didn't know we were going to have this kind of twist, but anything is liable to happen when I sit in this chair. This is Professor Sidney McGarter, Walter Thompson on the Global Radio Network, 99.5 FM. We'll be back after the break.
Burns on 809-2310. Follow us live on Facebook and globalradio99.5fm.com. Express yourself.
This is Professor Sidney Walter Thompson on the Global Radio Network 99.5 FM. This is a great day to be in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. The Bahamians, we have a whole host of problems. I remember when the Prime Minister said he had some work to do. Why is this work so quick now and you have less than 2 years?
Okay.
Perhaps less than a year. The point is that when they first came to power, this last administration, they had time to do all of this. Now, all of you see is a rushing of things all at once. And you know, when they pass laws, it doesn't mean that it comes into effect right away, because I talk about the Electricity Act. And what they're supposed to do in that act, they are not doing it now. I think we got about 6, 7, or 8 companies say they want to provide electricity on the island of New Providence. And you got some in the Family Islands. So what is the point of, passing a law, but those in authority are not following the law itself, Bahamians, is a problem for me. Serious problem. Are we talking about what we know? We can't talk about the heads of agreement because they say they ain't make it public, so we can't get into that. But the point is that in itself is a problem, because you don't know what the man is trying to tell me. This is what the writing is. I want to see it myself so I can study it, because he might overlook something.
Right.
But here's the
Go ahead, Brother Hyler.
Mr. Professor.
Cartwright, yeah.
You know, I don't know if you noticed, and I don't know if Brother Hyler or the producer noticed, but over the last 2.5 years, in the inner city, mainly, most of the land is being bought by non-Bahamians, mainly those of Haitian descent or Haitians,
Yes.
Chinese. And one of the things that I was talking with, so happened that I happened to be in the midst with 3 of the so-called political pundits who wanted to run in this next general election.
Yeah.
And they were asking me questions, and I was giving them my answers. We were talking about governance. And I said to them, I said, well, you know, the country, everything is basically Nassau-centric.
Yeah.
So I said, well, not really, you know. I said, if you read your constitution, it tells you that we must have constituencies.
That's right.
That's what it calls for. I said, but now, to get the change that you are trying to get, it'll be harder if you go down the road of looking and changing that name to something else.
Exactly.
But I said, but here's how you can basically empower the system to really work. So I said to them, if you look at Article 39, which deals with the way we appoint senators,
yes.
I said, why not move a bill, draft something to repeal those articles and replace it thereby that all senators not only be elected, but must have the equal amount of senators as you have
in the House of
as you have in the House of Assembly.
Okay, fair enough.
Then you can now assemble from your polling divisions, because somehow some constituents have more polls than others.
Yes.
And you can have a board that works with the senator and the MP, so that whenever they talk about how they're going to do for their constituency, and I said, what I would go further. I said, I would be personally, if I was in charge of this country, I would give every constituency, according to the size, a minimum of $10 million. And you would now use that money to develop it. So it means that the board, the senator, the MP come together to do what is best for that constituency. And because the Constitution calls us having a consolidated fund or the treasury, a percentage, I say I would give 20% of all monies that is made and raised in that constituency, send it back to central government, so that central government can basically continue its function.
Yes.
And they all look at me like, where did this come from? And I said, no, because I said, what others are proposing, the article saying to repeal, to change those things, you need at least a massive majority, because they're talking about 2/3 and 3/4.
3/4, yeah.
And I said, in my opinion, I do not see the Bahamian people giving any more political machinery a massive majority because we've already seen the track record of others.
That's right.
So they said to me, well, what if I said, me personally, my father always tell me, if you get Bahamian fired once, you don't need to get Bahamian fired twice to know that's fire. So I'm afraid that I said, I don't hold nothing against you personally, but I feel that the best way is to go after that sections, Article 39, dealing with the Senate, where you move that appointment. And then you start to elect. Because I said, this is where you want to move it into governance. And you can now control without making major drastic changes. Because I said, once you go the other way, it's calling for major. And you have to explain it to the people in the constituency because the people in those constituencies don't really, you want to empower them more.
Yes, they need to be empowered.
Definitely.
And so if you can empower them more by using that way and governance and still functioning, have a functional central government that is basically being funded by those constituencies
Yes,
from their proceeds where they keep majority
Right.
and the central government. And I said, let's look at it. I said, well, imagine if every constituency was to make a profit of $20 million, over $80 million.
yes,
And they turn around and give the central government $20 million from each constituency. I said 39 times 20, 39 times 20. In 1 year, that's a functional coming from your constituencies without even talking about the other taxes
that's right.
that the central government basically has in the constitution must allow to be collected.
Yes,
So imagine with all of that money now, one, you could basically move away from borrowing money because now your constituencies will help you pay your bills, but they will also be taking care of their finances.
their
because
finances. Yes,
Centerville might have a problem whereby that if they have their own constituency governance, they could take care of that problem in Centerville because there's a need that they could see.
of course.
They don't have to wait for the parliament to sit back and say, well, you know, we don't have no money in the budget for that. That got to wait another year. When they can empower themselves
Right on the ground. where
right
they
on
are.
the ground. And so
Yeah,
when you
that
look at
makes
these
sense.
things, yes. And so when you now look at all of these changes, because like I said, the prime minister talking about this land reform, and I always said, we already basically losing a lot of land in this country.
That's right.
The cruise ship won't just about most of all these little keys now. Now they look like they want to get into the land base again. Because you remember back in the 70s and 80s, Carnival did own a hotel here.
Yeah, they did.
Right.
And so now they're looking to shift because we know that Airbnb is now the new form,
That's the new norm.
of our norm in the hotel, in the tourism industry.
Tourism industry.
So
yeah.
now, if you can imagine a fellow who owns a cruise ship, has a key, also got land in the Bahamas, where now he can build. He is now cutting into where now he is making more money than the government of the Bahamas, than the Bahamians of the Bahamas.
Let's put
And
some
then
numbers
that's
on it,
correct.
God, right?
Yeah.
We generating like $3.5 to $4 billion. Norwegian Cruise Lines generating $13 billion.
Yeah.
Take a look at those numbers.
That's a big difference.
They're using our waters, using our land, along with others. But look at the potential. We are a whole nation.
Yeah.
500,000 people
Right.
generating $3 to $4 billion.
Right.
One company,
13.
13 plus
Yeah.
$billion dollars.
And like you said, Brother Hyder, imagine now if we had basically leased those keys that they
now
built
you're
it.
cooking.
You're starting to sound like Finland now.
Lease those keys,
Starting to
right?
sound like
Oh,
Finland.
I love Celine. I might be taller than him in stature, but he's a good fellow.
Yeah.
You know, he went by the way later on,
Yeah.
but
yeah,
them early years, and he was right about these things because see, imagine
ownership.
ownership.
For Bahamians.
Yeah, because
Yeah,
when you look at it,
The
all of
hotel
these
corporation.
corporations, when you look
Yes,
at all of
yeah,
these
Thank
things, when you look at over the hill, we could account all
Yeah.
foreign entities
Yeah.
over the hill.
Yes.
Now the foreign entities are buying up
It's
land.
more.
They're buying up the business. You know, I told a friend of mine today, I said, 15 years ago, the liquor business was controlled by Bahamians.
Yeah.
Today, it is controlled by the Chinese.
Now hold on. Who we heard? I think maybe 2 years ago, we heard that there was evidence that alcohol was basically being smuggled in. Now I'm not pinning that on the Chinese, but that is what the suggestion was. We haven't heard no reports on that.
But here's the thing. I've been doing some checking because I've been looking around at some potential persons to do advertisements. And in one sector I went in and I spoke because I've noticed there's a lot of them are now all over the town, Haitian nightclubs. And I asked them, I said, I remember one time ago, you could walk in a Haitian nightclub and you could see tons of different variety of Haitian rum. And they said to me, no, the government of Bahamas is preventing us from bringing in. So I said, okay, if they're preventing you, then how come when the Chinese, they bringing in, and some of the, because even when you look at the brand, we make Heineken here. The Heineken the Chinese make, you look at it, you always start to see the difference and stuff. So it's like, how did they get into this business? Now, even the Haitians are now in the liquor business. You look at the convenience stores. One time ago, that was only reserved for Bahamians.
Right.
Now,
Nothing reserved for Bahamians. Nothing.
When you look at even restaurants, and we crack a joke about, like I said, I talked to my friend today, and we crack a joke about, he said, there is no such thing as a greasy Bahamian fried chicken. Everything is run by the Haitians. And he said, and when you look at the collaboration, the Chinese in their business ventures, now who do they employ? Non-Bahamians. They hire the Haitians. So you've got outsiders working in your country against your people, prospering, whereby that your own parliament is working against you from prospering. And then they're wondering why you have all of these problems in the country, because people are now saying, hey, man, I had enough.
By you saying that, listen to what the caller said. Where was the pastors? Where were the politicians to help the lady? I just want to add something to that. There was silence before it came up.
That's true.
It went viral on social media, but look at what's happening after the matter. It's still silent, right?
Silence.
Well, some wickedness in this country, including among the pastors and the politicians.
Yeah, but here's the thing. I don't know which constituency that is.
And it don't matter, because every constituency has pastors and a member of parliament.
But the MP who represented that constituency should have been the first person on the ground.
Definitely.
And then if she didn't get no response, he was supposed to go to parliament and expose it right there and then.
Right.
So his colleagues in parliament would say, hey, you know what? We need to come with a bill to prevent stuff like this.
Exactly.
See, because now with this land
That's
reform,
what should be happening.
With this land,
let's talk about this. Let's read through this card, right? Please. You want to go page for page? You want to
go ahead, man. Start off.
Okay, I'll start it out. Listen, y'all. This is an article that appeared in the Guardian May 22nd, which is Thursday. Land reform bills mark generation shift for Bahamas. Starts out. Prime Minister Philip Davis said yesterday, which should have been Wednesday, that a suite of land reform bills that were recently tabled in Parliament will, once passed, represent a generational shift in how land ownership is managed and secured in the Bahamas. This is a quote from the Prime Minister, I wanted us to meet ahead of the formal debate on land reform legislation, because this is not just any debate, and these are not just any bills, Davis said during the Bahamas Parliamentary Land Reform Consultation at Breezes Bahamas Resort. Again, quote, the Prime Minister continuing to speak says, what we are considering together in the coming weeks is a generational shift in how we manage and secure land ownership in the Bahamas. It's critical that every parliamentarian fully understands the impact these reforms will have on Bahamian families, businesses, and communities. For decades, successive administrations have acknowledged that our land system is broken. Yet here we are in 2025, still grappling with the same issues identified in the first white paper on land reform back in the 1960s. That's just not unfortunate. It's unacceptable. The Land Adjudication Bill and Registered Land Bill were tabled in the House of Assembly 2 weeks ago. Davis said the bills will change how the government determines and records ownership. The Land Adjudication Bill 2025 and the Land Registration Bill 2025 represent a complete overhaul of how we determine and record land ownership, he said. This new system will bring clarity where there is now confusion and justice where there has been exploitation. We are moving from an outdated deed-based system of a modern title-based registry. Every land parcel will receive a unique identification number. Owners will be issued legal certificates that serve as indisputable proof of ownership. Adjudicators, supported by teams on the ground, will visit communities, hear claims, assess evidence, and resolve disputes through an independent land tribunal. Once claims are settled, the land can be officially registered and secured. He added, "We know the consequences of delay. Bahamians are left without clear title to their land, unable to pass it on, unable to develop it, unable to access credit, and using land as security." Finally, we know that disputes drag on in courts for years. We know the cost, not just financially, but emotionally, for families caught in uncertainty. And we know that those with deep pockets and clever attorneys have often found ways to manipulate a chaotic system to their advantage. We now have a responsibility and an opportunity to change all of that. The meeting gave parliamentarians a chance, well, that's end quote right there. That's end quote from the Prime Minister. The meeting, this is the last of the whole article. It says, the meeting gave parliamentarians a chance to raise queries or questions weeks before the bill is debated and potentially passed in the House of Assembly. The Land Adjudication Bill allows for an adjudicator who must be an attorney with at least 7 years of experience conveyancing and 2 other persons to form an adjudication tribunal. The tribunal will assess and determine claims to land ownership in a particular area designated by the responsible minister.
The only thing I ask is it constitutionally sound? That's my first question. That is why.
I don't want to answer.
No, I'm not saying you have to answer it.
Yeah.
That's what comes to my mind because I know the Constitution speaks about land.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And I hear him talking about this independent, whatever. Thing
Independent tribunal.
Tribunal, whatever that's supposed to
2
mean.
or 3 persons.
And reputation of the particular personalities who will form this tribunal.
Yes.
Okay. We have to be very, very careful of what the government of the Bahamas is doing to the Bahamian people. He talked about in the 60s, how long that party has been around. 70 years next year.
70 years.
Huh?
Yeah.
What have they done? They've been
nothing.
in and out of government. And you mean to tell me here it is, what is May 22nd? 2025, you just coming forth with this? After all of this massive suffering that people have been through for decades.
So
You just, hold on, Brother
go ahead,
Hyla.
go ahead.
No, but this is important because I listened to the whole crap that was put out there.
Mhm.
He is now saying this just prior to an election. Give me a break, man. You think that's supposed to solve anything? That's supposed to just make everything right? And the first question I ask, is it constitutionally sound? Because you see, I'm going to go over it with a fine-tooth comb. And this is just coming to the people now.
Yes.
And we
And
have
not
no,
even on the front page. Well, no, hold on. Not even the headline. because it's on the front page, small down to
And
the
small
bottom.
at the bottom. Okay, good. I'm glad you noticed that.
Mhm.
And the point is, there's been no discussion with the people in the constituencies. And this has been going to the House when they open up again.
Mhm.
I mean, well, what is this?
Boy,
See, but hold on, gentlemen. See, this is why I have a problem with those who are running the country, where these matters like this, which is very serious, which can have a damaging effect on the people themselves, they have no input into what this man is talking about. I believe we have a caller, Mr. Bruce.
yeah, let's go to call because I want to say something.
Yeah, I know. I just want.
We all want to say something.
I know you all
Let's
want
get
to
the
say
caller
something.
first.
Let's get the caller. Caller, you're live on here. Go ahead, please.
Yes, Professor. What I want to say, we are missing the buck. What the politicians or the powerful people needs to do, tell these immigrants who are illegally occupying the Bahamian people land, they have to vacate.
Yes, ma'am.
Then we need to put that, reestablish the law that
Mhm.
foreigners cannot buy land.
Very good.
To me, this
That's
is
a
like
good
this is
point.
a trick with this new land law
Mhm.
to cover up for these immigrants who purchasing and sitting on Bahamian people land and to give access. Only we need to do is to repeal that law, put it back into place that foreigners cannot buy, purchase land.
Mhm.
Because
You know
if we
something?
don't,
You know
Mhm.
something, caller, while
Yes,
you were
ma'am.
speaking?
I think that this is a trick for to keep it a secret how these immigrants are stealing Bahamian people land. I
Yes,
don't
ma'am.
think this law or laws is for us. It is a trickery to facilitate those who are already stealing it. I think it's all tricks.
Yes, ma'am.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying now? Do you see why some things got to be entrenched in the Constitution?
Yes.
Particularly as it relates to land.
Mhm.
We have to see the danger of where this is going to take the country. And it's the duty of the Bahamian people to wake up. Bahamians have been warning you and telling you, watch what the government of the Bahamas is doing to you. And take seriously what they're saying, line it up with the Constitution. This man talking about in the 60s, that party been knocking around 70 years next year.
Professor, before Cartwright speaks, Professor,
Yeah, go
we
ahead.
caller, just want to say, did you have another comment you wanted to make? We want to make sure we hear you out.
It's not right. The land belongs to us.
Yes,
as
it does.
reparation
Yes, ma'am.
from the crown. What are we trying to do? It's not right. It's
Yes,
our
ma'am.
land. Don't give it to the immigrants who come in here. We can't do it in their country, so why come here and take our land and give it to them?
Yes, ma'am.
Just
Well,
give the land, give it to a Bahamian, like Loftus Roker. That's one man I respect. He told the UN he's not going to give Bahamian people land to no foreigners. He says, if you give it to Bahamian, it'll be to another Bahamian. He said, you don't need to give land from Bahamian to Bahamian because everybody has an entitlement.
yes, ma'am. Well, I appreciate your contribution. Thank you very much for your contribution. Brother Cartwright, go ahead.
Yes. I agree with the caller, and like I said with Brother Holler. But if you look at Article 26, paragraph 7 and 8, it talks about these things that entrenched in the Constitution
Yes.
pertaining to businesses, shops, hotels, restaurants. And so I'm like, this, when you start to think about it, you already have these non-Bahamians buying up land.
Yes, they are.
And now, if you listen carefully, and here's how he worded, impact these reforms will have on Bahamian families. Now, I wonder if he talking about Bahamian businesses, because I got the Bahamian families and communities. Whose communities are you looking out for? Whose businesses are you looking out for? So a lot of this stuff that you now going to be presenting, and I was like, 2 weeks. This kind of bill will not take 2 to 4 weeks. This will
No.
take at least half a year.
I think it need to be rejected, number one, and number two, quickly, Cartwright.
Yeah.
I believe none of these major parties qualify to administer this type of legislation.
But I'm saying
I
again,
don't think they can be trusted.
this kind of legislation is not a 4 weeks. This is at least 2 to 3 months proper vetting, because you
No, it has to take proper
you
vetting.
cannot take this
No,
in a couple of weeks,
no.
pass this, and accept this, because you can look, I can tell you right now what's gonna happen. And I can say this out front. You can look at some people to get themselves hurt. Because the Bahamians are no longer gonna let you walk in the talk, but sit on their land, and you're a foreigner. I can tell them this can cause plenty problems.
Yeah, Brother Cartwright, we got to stop because the music very loud in my ears. Man, the man, tell me I need to shut up. This is Professor. He has this cool way of doing it. This is Professor Sidney McGarr, Walter Thompson. We can go. We'll be back after the break. On this Constitution Day. Let me give Brother Cartwright the floor. Go ahead.
Professor, here's the thing, and I hope the Prime Minister would take it in consideration and not rush this bill to be passed, because you're looking at something that is going to basically affect many, the whole country.
The whole country, yeah.
Because when you look at property, people like those like us, families who have property in Long Island, most of the family islands especially, where the land was basically bought before there was any local government.
Yes.
And records, either was he kept by the church or what used to be now the building on Shirley Street,
The archives.
the archives
Archive,
on
yeah.
Marquis
National
Street.
Archives,
Marquis
yeah.
Street.
And so you found that a lot of families never understood the word probate.
No, they didn't.
And so because
It was
they
never explained
to them,
Mhm.
so families were basically, which in those days, basically the head of the house was the father.
Right.
Yes.
He would die,
Mhm.
and the sons, because basically under the British Act,
Yeah.
everything went to the oldest
The
son
oldest
son,
son.
that's
Yeah.
in marriage.
Mhm.
And if he didn't leave a will, that's how it was set up.
Mhm.
And then even still, if he'd leave the will, he said to all of my children, that's what made the property generational.
Mhm.
Right.
And then you have all of these stuff through time, because we never believe in those days recording and explaining.
Right.
And you go to to land registrar, or you go to the registration, and they said, okay, XYZ. Yes. What's the name? You call the name. No, we don't see that name there. Well, who was the person? Did you know who originally owned it? Yes. Oh, my grandfather or my great grandfather.
Right.
Yeah. This property is still in his name. He's deceased. Yes, he's deceased. Well, you know what you have to do now, right? No, sir. Please tell me. Well, since you might be the grandson, you will have to probate this estate from your grandfather to your father,
Right.
to you. Or if in those days that your father was not the oldest male child in marriage, and he had a brother who was older than him, and if he didn't probate it, then means if he's alive, no. Well, you got to probate from your grandfather to your uncle to your father to you. And then whatever's in the will, then you basically sort it out. So you see all of this contentious headache. And because like I tell people, 99.9 the lands on the family islands were bought way before even Mr. Davis was born.
That's right.
And for you to now introduce a new bill to where now their children and grandchildren are just grasping some of the understanding of how to protect
Right.
What is there?
what is theirs.
Exactly.
And you now coming with a new system saying that
Right.
the deed, you're looking to make some adjustment to that. And you're already seeing a lot of these shysters moving around in the Bahamas.
Right.
I tried to acquire.
Still are doing it
Yeah,
today.
and acquiring land
Yes.
and stuff. So you're saying it because I found out that you could have a deed and the party can still turn around and try and you was acquiring. And I said, but what if they never put nothing on the land? They
Right.
said, but well, if no one really checks, they could ask about the land and say, listen, I've been watching this property, XYZ. I haven't found out who the owner is, and I would like to acquire it. So they use that side of the law. And so he knows well because he talks about
Right.
the conveyance, because I think he's done mostly, his firm has done, at the time I've known them to do conveyance also.
Yeah.
So all of these things that you're now talking, because here's my thing. This land reform bill to me, I don't think it's catering to the Bahamian people. I'm sorry.
I don't think so also.
This land bill is basically going to be catering to non-Bahamians, and like the lady said,
Or the wealthy. If it's
Yeah.
Bahamians, it's
Yeah.
going to be wealthy Bahamians. Quote, let me
Yeah.
quote the Prime Minister.
yes,
And we know that those with deep pockets and clever attorneys have often found ways to manipulate a chaotic system to their advantage.
So how come nothing
What's
was
going to
done?
change?
Yeah.
How come nothing was done
Uh-huh.
from the time they were in power from
Yes.
1967 right,
Right.
up to now? And he
Right.
knew this.
He knew it.
His government knew
His
it.
government knew
His
it.
party knew it.
Right.
What did they do for the masses to prevent this kind of crap that's going on today?
Nothing.
What did they do? Nothing.
Well,
Zero.
let's
Zero.
be specific. Professor, let's make sure the public understands that a bill was put forward but never ratified. We want the public to understand this. 1973 documentation for land reform were put together. Never saw the light of day. The same thing that they're dealing with right
Well,
now.
that's zero.
This could have been the registered land bill 1973. That's how far behind we are.
Yeah, we way
but
behind.
then here's what they did though, Brother Hyler.
Mm.
Mr. Ingram came along and saw it, and then he turned around
And yeah.
and like Linden said, look, if we will only lease.
Mhm.
Mr. Ingram said, well, no, we need to get people want to buy land and want to do development.
No,
Yeah.
So he turned around and he put in the Removable Property Act,
Right.
which now opened the doors for us who own a piece of land or trying to claim what is the rest of the land you just found out that you own.
Mhm.
You now find yourself competing with these non-Bahamians
Right.
with deep pockets,
Right.
and some of them having these high-profile lawyers say, man, look here, man, he ain't got no money, but I'll give him a couple of dollars for that piece of land, and I'll have him probated, whatever.
Mhm.
And then you realize that
And he's left out in the cold.
cold,
Right.
you end up selling that for little or nothing,
Mhm.
and that owner, whoever becomes that new foreign owner, what he does is that they fence that property off because land value don't go down,
No, it doesn't.
it goes up.
We, but per cartwright, we have a caller
Well,
on
yeah.
the line. Caller, you live on air. Go ahead, please.
Yes, Professor. Let me shoot a couple bullets, and I'm very, very angry. Let me tell you something, what I experienced. There was a situation, 3 different incidents I'm going to tell you about. There's a big, massive amount of land in Exuma. Acres and acres that were granted to the crown to this particular family. Follow me. You see it in the paper. You went and you did an investigation. These people, the man is a postal worker in the States. His wife is a housewife. This land was granted to the crown in Exuma. The last relative who is supposed to be having that land died from descent from Kemp Spey Andros. The woman was 90-something. But you got this postal worker in the States and his wife probably gone upon Exuma, see this valuable property, and you know how they were acquiring it? Through a big, high-profile country jail law firm downtown. That's one incident. When you did an investigation as to who wanted to acquire it, the secretary came out and you said to, I see this thing in the paper about Exuma. Oh yes, we're acquiring it. When the sibling got an investigated, the man is a postal worker, the wife is a housewife. How in the hell they come down in the Bahamas and own black people property that was granted to them by the crown? This woman, that family, the woman had 23 children, a couple sets of twins. Her last child just died 93 years ago, about 92 years old, about 3 years ago. But she has children, grandchildren, and that woman 23 children. So this is what we are up against in this country by our people who ain't protecting our interests. The postal worker, how in the hell he could come and acquire the Bahamian people land? That's one incident. Another incident,
ma'am,
this woman's grandson, she gave him a conveyance that could date 1910. He went up to the place to inquire about it. You know what the people tell him? You come 1 year late. This key was sold. Who was it sold to? He got a conveyance in 1910. Another situation. This Bahamian man and his wife, they're known shysters and land thieves. The woman worked down in the straw market. Because she working in the straw market, the McBride situation, they feel like they should have swing her oceanfront property. Good thing she had a granddaughter who's a lawyer who fight them. So when you look at it, you got the Bahamians driving around, hoping that they get lucky to thief from the Bahamian, and then you got these international forces who coming in here. So what we need to do now, it looks like everybody coming in the Bahamas to take black people land, and it's not right. And I saying this with authority. God can put something on all these people who hate the Bahamian people. God is going to deal with them.
Yes, ma'am.
God is going to deal with them. I said, taking a new thing. It is not right. It is not right. Why are we doing this?
Thank you for your contribution. The lady is very, you see what happens now?
Yeah, but let's stay. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
See, for years, the Bahamians have been very passive pertaining to land.
Yes, they have.
We now understand now the value of land.
Yes.
And we now looking back, and when you think about it, if you look back at the act that Mr. Ingram put in place that built with the removable property,
right,
you realize that has hurt us more than has helped us.
Yes,
definitely.
And now you started to see a drove of non-Bahamians is now coming in, acquiring land. They said, "Oh well, he don't want to tell us this." And that's why I tell Bahamians over and over: any foreigner approach you to do any land transaction about land in the Bahamas, do not sign no documents with them in the United States. I have a cousin of mine, my grandmother's cousin. They had set on but 300 acres in Long Island.
Yes.
He was deemed legally blind, but the lawyer said that who he hired in the U.S., who he did the transaction with, said that instead of giving the client 5 acres, he gave him the whole acreage, over 300 acres. And now they got other family members are now fighting just to keep their little portion.
Yes.
And I said to them, I said, this is where we now got to stop. This is where the buck got to stop. We need to repeal that act by Mr. Ingram and said no more. We will not let no more foreigners come into this country and buy land. Because here's the funny thing. You don't get to see it, even around the Caribbean. We the only people, like I was telling you, we really like our native shellfish in the water, conch. Because only conch basically just sit there and just let people pick him up.
Yeah,
And that's what's happening to us.
That's why we like conchs.
Yeah. Because
But no one can call us a conch now.
No.
We can call one another conch.
Conch.
Yes.
But they're using us and they're coming in and then
Understood.
decide
Taking
that
advantage
they've
of
got Bahamian lawyers.
Mhm.
This is the sad part about it.
Mhm. Mhm.
Bahamian lawyers are working with these individuals to manipulate and acquire land, to manipulate land from Bahamians.
From Bahamians, yes.
So let's read some evidence here. This is out of the Privy Council. I put a link inside the Facebook chat. The link, or all you have to do is go to Google and put in Cat Island land theft. Put that in Google and see what come up. The first thing come up, and I'll read from this article. The London-based Privy Council has reiterated concerns that the Bahamas Quieting Titles Act can be used to steal land, saying it was no accident, that's a quote from London, that it has heard numerous title disputes from the Bahamas. The highest court in the Bahamian judicial system flagged the issue in a December 2012 verdict on a title dispute involving more than 400 acres of land on Cat Island. Can't read through the whole thing, but the article says a case whose participants included the wife of ex-Deputy Prime Minister Brent Simonet.
Yes.
Robin McTaggart Simonet became involved as an executrix of her mother Sheila's estate. Can't read all of it. The point is this. Here in the Bahamas, this case took place over maybe 15 years. I need everybody to hear me carefully. The family, the local Cat Island family, went to court. They lost the case. They appealed the case. They lost again. They went to the Supreme Court. They lost again. They got leave to get to the Privy Council. What if they didn't have money to get to the Privy Council? When they got to the Privy Council wrote a 30-something page report saying every time you went to court, you should have won.
Yes.
There's errors in the way the case was interpreted. So there are Bahamians out there who went to court and lost, but you shouldn't have lost.
Yes.
You go, even if you go under the Supreme Court and lost, there are some of y'all that should not have lost. And if you could have made it to London, and we, a team of us, are going to make sure as many Bahamians get to London as possible, because it appears that if you don't get to London, you will get no justice. And that's for every lawyer out there in the Bahamas, and that's for every judge in the Bahamas. It is questionable, not you as a person, hear me carefully, not you as an individual lawyer, not you as an individual judge, as a system in the Bahamas, the judicial system
But it takes
is
people,
failing the Bahamian people.
It takes people
There are people
who are involved.
Yes, some
Who are
crookery.
misleading,
Yes.
deceiving,
Yes.
lying
Right.
to the Bahamian people.
And we don't want it to happen again. The potential lies in the same land reform bill. Who lawyer you can trust talk about an adjudicator is going to oversee the people? Listen, every Bahamian under the sound of our voice. Cartwright, I can't completely agree with you on this one. Like you say, it have to be carefully reviewed. The only thing I will add to what you said, I feel this need to be rejected. I don't think they could be trusted to handle a land registry for the Bahamas.
But here's the thing I'm looking at. Said that Mr. Davis said during the Bahamas parliamentary land reform consultation
Right.
at Breezes.
Yes.
And I'm like,
There are
we
people.
got 39 constituencies. Why didn't you basically take time out, make an island tour of your nation,
Yes.
and talk to your people?
Yes.
But he didn't do it.
So
No, what I'm saying,
Yeah.
Professor, you are talking to the parliamentarians at a nice air-conditioned
Right.
resort.
Right.
When you should have basically said, you know
Right.
something, this is bigger than us.
Yes.
We need to get to the people.
Didn't come to the
Go
people.
out to every
Exactly.
constituency,
Yes.
explain to the people what you're
Right.
trying to do,
Right.
take questions,
Right.
then you come back and then you sit down with the Attorney
Exactly.
General, the parliamentarians, the Senate,
Right.
and say, this is what the replies we got
From
back
the
from the
people.
citizens,
Right.
and this is what we're going to craft this bill
Right.
to protect their rights.
Okay, Cartwright, can I say this, right? I hope you're ready. Professor, I hope you're ready. They didn't do it.
No.
Let's do it. Dwayne Hyler is saying, Richard Cartwright, Sidney Thompson,
Yes.
Dwayne Hyler, let's go out to the people and teach them and show them that this, your land, here's how you've been losing it, number one. And number two, here's how you could keep it. And personally, I believe it only could be done with help out of London, Professor. Be in
I'm
trouble.
not disagreeing with that.
Be in trouble.
Well, hopefully I would be home in Long Island next month. And I sound like I can be having some council meetings. Because Long Island is one of those few
Yeah.
places where
Yeah.
most of the land in Long Island was bought by grandfathers and great-grandfathers
Mhm.
before there was any local government.
Yes, they were.
And these people have deeds.
Yes, they have.
And
to,
now
yeah.
you're telling me now
Yeah.
their deeds might not mean anything,
Yes.
you know?
Cartwright, before we take this call, just a
Yeah.
moment. There are many Bahamians who probate land and don't realize 1 to 2 years is a maximum. I just wanted to insert that. There are many Bahamians who going through 5 years, 10 years, no probate. That's wickedness. That's wickedness. You should not be under no probate. Lawyer lose your paper, and 5, 10 years later, we don't know what happened to Grammy land. We can't get it.
Can't get it.
You have to call.
We have a caller on the line. Caller, you live on air. Go ahead, please.
Yes, good afternoon, Professor.
Hey, what's happening?
Hey, good day.
How you doing? Where's the hot topic, eh?
This is I didn't know we were going to run into this today. But boy, this is what happens when you're sitting in the chair.
My brother, just keep on breathing in and breathing out. You ain't see that yet.
Oh, okay.
Whoa.
The caller said I haven't seen
Tell you
anything
something,
yet.
man.
Yes,
Let me tell
sir.
y'all something. What I keep saying,
Mhm.
it ain't chance. For one, Mr. Hyler, you ever find out why our flag isn't in Parliament Squares yet?
Well, they saying only while they're in session. Hey, Cartwright?
Yep.
That's what they say. So whenever they
Stop
on.
that, man. Stop it.
So Cartwright,
Man,
let's,
listen,
let-
the donkey and tie me, man. I must see as a donkey to believe.
that's a serious thing.
Come on, man.
Also, I heard that, I can't verify this, but I know that someone who claims that they had designed the flag of the Bahamas
Mhm.
and wasn't compensated. And they are now, I think, is taking legal action for their compensation. So until I get the real crux of it, but I know that the clerk of the house, I can tell you what the clerk has said. Only during sessions, they hoist the flag. Now, I've never noticed it, but I noticed that only when the house is in session, you see they come and they put the flag up, and as soon as the session is over, they take the flag down.
And what they say the reason for that is?
Well, they say the only reason they hoist the flag up is that during the session, but then once the session over,
No,
they don't
didn't
let the
say
flag.
why.
No, but
Why?
he said that they don't let the flag in a way catch draft. That's how the fella put it to me. But during the house meetings, they do put the flag up because Parliament
Listen.
basically, yeah.
Hold on. Stick a pin in it, my brother, because I don't want to hear no more, man. I don't want to hear no more. Listen to this. These same two successive governments that's been running this country, you see what they doing? All they do, every time they open up their mouth, you could see that they have the Bahamian people interest not at heart. And y'all discussing, well, I mean, out in the public arena, they discussing whether they should vote FNM or PLP. You gotta be a jock donkey, boy.
It's a serious thing. And
serious.
the chairman from the PLP,
Nothing stop good for us.
the chairman of the PLP said they have an avalanche of
What?
of aspirant candidates. That's how many people want to join them
Remember
in
now.
their works.
Hold on, stop right there.
Mhm.
Hold on, caller. Hold on. Let me make a point. You cannot believe things you hear from the chairman of that party. Be very careful what he says. He is saying, hold on, caller, please, hold on.
Go ahead.
Do not believe everything you hear coming out of his mouth. He will
I
say
don't believe
things.
nothing will come out of any one of their mouth.
But I can't blame you for that. I can't blame you for that.
Because when Chester Cooper come there and say, well, Freeport is booming, how you could say that? And people over there are going, even ain't got, they ain't getting nothing. And you talking about Freeport booming? Well, I ain't to see if he would have said Freeport was hating. I don't believe nothing that they say. I don't even want to hear them on the news. Because all they do is lie. And not the prime minister. He could tell the public, oh, y'all can see what can happen. What kind of foolishness is that coming from the leader of our country? And you would tell me y'all want to put him back? Don't be stupid. Stuck on stupid. Honestly. If we don't get rid of these two governments, we can never get nothing. And they showing you they want to take your line away.
Well,
Every time you go to court, if your case always get put off. If you ain't got no long dollars, dog eat your lunch. If that man ain't had money to go to the Privy Council, case closed.
It would have been closed, yes.
Property gone.
Definitely.
You see why?
No, we can't continue going down this road, Bahamians.
No.
We need to get rid of both of them. Both of them. FNM and POP. I ain't ashamed to say it.
Okay, Carla. Well, thank you for your
Anyway,
contribution.
y'all have a
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Here's what I would say, Brother Hyla and Professor. I keep saying to people, getting rid of PLP, FNMs is our choice. But those who want to replace them in leadership needs to come with clear policies so that we could be enthusiastic to say, okay, I can support you. But if you just telling me get rid, and you ain't giving me no solutions. See, because we all can get rid of anything we want to get rid of. I'm not saying that we need to keep them, but I'm saying if you want to replace an administration that has been failing the country, please give me answers. We hear that someone said to us yesterday, Professor, we're big enough. No, if your particular party you're supporting would not provide us with information, like you said to the leader that day,
yes, I did.
Whatever topic we talk on, if you have some input, call in.
Yes.
This was a good topic.
Good topic. We're here from him.
We're here from him.
He should have been on.
Yes, I would have loved to hear his policies, how they would repeal and land and stuff.
I don't know, Mr. Bruce, if this is our last break.
This is it. This is it.
I didn't even know.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. But I'm going to have to continue this on Monday. Go
Yes,
ahead,
we have a
Brian.
rebroadcast of Save the Base from following the
Save the
show
Break.
with Joe Dowell.
Okay, Brother
And
Joe
Javon
Dowell
Hunt.
is going to be coming on after us here on
Right.
Freeport.
Other than that, farewell,
Thank
Rodney
you very much for
Munker.
listening.
Farewell,
Yeah,
Rodney
Rodney Munker, you have
Munker.
to tell him
Farewell, Rodney. We're going to miss you.
This is
You're gonna
Professor
miss-
Sidney McArdle, Walter Thompson on the Global Radio Network. Stay tuned to Save the Base out of Grand Bahama. Have a pleasant afternoon. And of course, Monday, I'll be here. Constitution Day on Monday. I'm going to have to continue this topic. This is Professor Sidney McArdle, Walter Thompson on the Global Radio Network. Have a pleasant afternoon.